Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a beautiful and warm-hearted girl. One day, when her mother passed away, her father remarried another woman. This evil-hearted stepmother had two daughters just as evil as herself. Her stepmother and stepsisters treated her very badly.
You cannot sit with us on the same table.
You cannot sit with us.
Oops! The glass fell down. Hurry and clean it up, Cinderella.
While they were out and having fun, she had to stay home and do all the dirty housework. Everybody at home used to call her Cinderella. When she got tired, she sat down in front of the fireplace, placed her cat on her lap, and tried to warm up with the dying fire. One fine morning, they received an invitation from the palace.
A big ball is going to be held at the palace in honor of the prince, and all the girls eligible for marriage are invited.
While the stepmother was preparing her daughters for the ball, Cinderella was unwillingly helping them.
You have to be the most beautiful girls in the ball. The prince must like you.
Why can't I come? All the girls eligible for marriage are invited.
Really? Is this the outfit you're going to wear to the ball?
When the day for the ball had arrived, all alone at home, Cinderella couldn't help her tears and started crying. Right at that moment, a bright light appeared in the chimney. Through the bright light appeared a beautiful fairy. Cinderella could not believe her eyes because this fairy was her mother. Mother! Hello, my darling. I came to help you. You too will go to the ball at the palace. Really? But how? With my little help. Now you go get me the biggest pumpkin from the garden. And you, Kitty Cat, hurry up and fetch me 7 mice. With one magic touch, the fairy transformed the pumpkin into a beautiful horse carriage. She then turned her magic wand to the mice. One of the mice became the driver, and the other 6 turned into beautiful white horses. Now it's your turn. I look like a princess. But Mother, I do not know how to dance. What if the prince asks me to? With these magic shoes, you will be the best dancing girl at the ball. You must have a dance with the prince. Oh, but don't forget, my dear, the magic will be gone by exactly midnight. Therefore, you have to leave the ball before the clock hits 12. Thank you very much, Mother. I will come before midnight, I promise. Mother, will I be able to see you again? I'm always by your side. When Cinderella entered the palace with her elegance and beauty, suddenly all the heads turned towards her. Even her stepsisters could not recognize her, and of course, the handsome prince was mesmerized by her beauty. The king and the queen also were very fond of Cinderella.
Now that's what I call a princess.
Prince immediately asked Cinderella to dance. Cinderella was floating on the dance floor thanks to her magic shoes. The stepmother and her daughters were speechless by her beauty and full of rage with their jealousy. Cinderella was so happy, she could not feel how fast time had passed and completely forgot her promise to her mother. Suddenly, the clock on the wall caught her eye. It was almost midnight. Leaving the prince standing there, she ran down the ballroom stairs, and right when she was running, one of her magic shoes slipped off her foot. But there was not enough time to turn around and pick her shoe up. Running after Cinderella, the prince found her shoe lying on the stairs.
Find the owner of this shoe as soon as possible. If necessary, travel the whole country, but find her.
The men traveled around the country, knocked on every door and allowed every young girl to try the shoe on. But the shoe did not fit anyone. Until finally, they arrived to Cinderella's house. Both the stepsisters tried the shoe on.
If you push a little further, it will fit.
Yes, my daughter's feet are a little swollen because she's very tired. But the shoe did not fit either of them. The men said that their captain had seen another girl inside the house.
There's another young lady in the house.
As soon as Cinderella put on the shoe, the men knew that it belonged to her because the shoe fit her foot just perfectly.
You have to come to the palace with us, young lady. Our prince awaits for you.
The prince's men took Cinderella to the palace. When the prince saw Cinderella, he immediately recognized her and was very happy to see her. He went down on his knees and asked her to marry him.
Will you marry me, my princess?
Immediately and with great pleasure, Cinderella accepted the prince's proposal. And they lived happily ever after. But so how did it happen that my shoe didn't lose its magic? I'm always by your side. Of course. Oh, Mother. It was you all that time. Once upon a time, there lived a king who had 12 beautiful daughters. These 12 princesses lived all together in a big, beautiful room. The king protected his daughters with his heart, and when they went to bed at night time, he did not allow them to go out. But every morning, they would wake up to something very strange. The shoes of the princesses would all be worn out as if they had danced all night long. The king had to buy his daughters new shoes every day. But the following days after, the shoes just kept wearing out. Neither the king nor his men in the castle could solve the mystery of the shoes.
How is this even possible? How can a pair of shoes worn out like that in just one night? Your Highness, we can't understand.
Finally, the king said,
Whoever solves the mystery of my daughter's shoes will get to marry whichever daughter of mine he chooses, become my son-in-law, and get to be the king when I pass away. But he has 3 days and 3 nights to solve it. Otherwise, he will spend his life in prison.
Many young men in the kingdom and even princes from other kingdoms came to the castle for the job. For days they guarded the door of the 12 princesses' bedroom. But after some time, none of them could solve the mystery. And shoes continued to wear out by the night. Finally, a good-hearted young man also wanted to give it a shot. And so he made his way to the castle. On his way, he met a lanky old lady who looked very poor. "My dear child, I'm very hungry. Would you be kind enough to give me a piece of bread?" The young man gave all the food he had in his bag to the old lady. She was very happy because the previous men who had passed didn't give anything. The old woman knew that this one was different than the others. So, in return, she gave him a magic cape. "Take this magic cape. When you wear it, you will be invisible. When it strikes 12 o'clock at night, put the cape on, be invisible, and get in the princess's room. This way you can solve the mystery of the shoes."
But be aware, do not drink what the princesses give you. No, those nasty princesses. The young man took the magic cape and went to the castle. And when he arrived, he said that he was there to solve the mystery of the shoes. First day, when he was keeping guard in front of the princess's room, the oldest princess came out with a glass of lemonade.
You must be thirsty. We have prepared some lemonade for you. Please, have some.
The young man forgot about the old lady's warning and drank it. Soon after, he was very sleepy. He fell asleep, snoring all night in the room that they had prepared for him. When it was morning, the young man stood up in a panic.
I was supposed to wear the magic cape and get in the princess's room.
On the second night, the young man once again kept guard in front of the princess's room. This time, another princess came out with a glass of juice in her hand. The young man was so thirsty while keeping guard and waiting for the nightfall. Without thinking, he drank all the juice that had been given to him. And of course, dozed off once again. The next morning when he woke up, he finally remembered the old lady's words. But be aware, do not drink what the princesses give you.
There must be a sleeping pill in the drinks the princesses give me.
At that moment, the king came next to him.
2 days have gone by and you still haven't solved the mystery of the shoes. If you cannot do it today, you will end up in prison and stay there for the rest of your life.
The king finished his talk and went away. The young man had to solve this mystery today. That night, for the last time, the young man kept guard in front of the princess's door. This time, the youngest princess came out with an orange juice in her hand. But the young man was aware now. He took the glass, thanking the princess, and when the princess left, he poured the orange juice in a pot next to him. This time round, he was standing tall. The night fell and soon it was midnight. The young man put his cape on and at that moment became invisible. Slowly he opened the door and could not believe what he was seeing. All of the princesses were wearing their most beautiful ball gowns, hair and makeup done with their very new shoes. Let's see if the young man at the door has fallen asleep. One of the princesses opened the door and looked outside, and another princess put her ear on the wall. At that moment, the young man knew that he had to make some snoring noises. The oldest princess pushed her bed aside and clapped her hands 3 times. A secret passage opened in the place of the bed. The young man could not believe his eyes. One by one, all the princesses walked inside. And of course, the young man followed. The secret passage was opening to a stairway which had hundreds of steps going down. When they were going down the stairs, at one point the young man accidentally stepped on one of the princess's skirts.
Oh, somebody stepped on my skirt.
Oh, nonsense. It was probably you. When the stairs had finished, they came into a forest. They went past tall trees with beautiful silver branches. The young man took a branch and kept following the princesses. After another long walk, they stopped on the edge of a river. In the river, there were 12 boats in the shape of swans, and in them there were 12 princes waiting for the princesses. They got on the boats, and the young man got on the last one.
The boat seems heavier than usual today, as if another person is on it.
Strange. Oh, come on, stop dreaming. When they crossed the river, they came across a big shiny castle, and they could hear music coming from inside. When he looked through the window, the young man saw many people dancing. As soon as they entered the castle, the princesses started to dance. They would never get tired and just kept on dancing. Of course, their shoes started to wear out. The young man could not bear his hunger anymore, so he took a slice of cake on the table and started to eat. The youngest princess saw this.
Hey, my cake! My cake is floating as if someone invisible is eating it.
Come on, stop it with this nonsense. The young man took a golden cup from the table without anyone noticing. The princesses danced till the morning. Then they got on the boats, crossed the river, walked through the forest, walked up the very long staircase, and finally they came back to their castle. But their shoes were all worn out. Once again. The young man was very happy that he had finally solved the mystery of the worn-out shoes. A while later, the king came next to the young man.
Your time is up today. Did you solve the mystery of the shoes? Yes, Your Highness, I did.
And so he told him everything. The king didn't believe him at first. But when the young man showed him the silver branch from the forest and the golden cup from the shining castle, the king knew he was telling the truth. And so he kept his promise and granted him the right to marry whichever princess he chose. The young man said that he wanted to marry the youngest one. The 12 dancing princesses were clearly not happy because their secret was out now. But the young man and the youngest princess got married and lived happily ever after.
Once upon a time, there lived a very rich man. He had 3 daughters. 2 of them were really greedy and self-centered girls, but the third one had a heart full of love and kindness. One day, their dad received the news that his ships had sunk due to the storm. Poor man had lost everything and was left with only his little house in the village. The 2 greedy sisters were of course not pleased with this situation. All day long, all they were doing was sitting around and complaining. All the housework was left to Beauty. After a while, their father heard that one of his lost ships had made it to the harbour. He started to prepare to go to the harbour right away. And before he left, he asked his daughters.
What should I bring you when I get back, girls?
Dress, shoes, necklace, and bracelets.
And what about you, Beauty? What do you want?
Just the rose is fine, Daddy. Their father arrived at the harbour after a long journey, but neither his stuff on the boat was there, nor was the ship usable. Sad and tired, he started his journey back home. It was almost dark when he reached the forest. The forest was dark and cold, and it was snowing. He rode his horse for hours and hours on the snow. And finally, he saw a castle with the lights on. He entered, hoping maybe they might help him. It was a weird castle. The lights were on everywhere. The dinner table was full of food, and there was fire in the chimney. But there was no one to be seen. He called out for someone, but no one answered. Finally, not being able to wait anymore, he first ate some food from the table, and then he slept in one of the beds.
When he woke up in the morning, he found some new clothes next to the bed. He went downstairs. A nice breakfast was waiting for him on the table.
This castle should belong to a fairy, or she wouldn't help me like this. I wish I could thank her.
When he was leaving the castle, he noticed the rose garden. I could not grant my other daughter's wishes. At least I can make Beauty's wish happen, he thought to himself. Just as he picked a rose, he and his surroundings shook with a loud roar. An evil-looking lion-like beast appeared from behind the trees. The father almost fainted when he saw the beast.
I saved your life. I fed you. I gave you new clothes. And here you are, stealing my roses. Is this how you thank me?
The man went on his knees and begged him. Said that he wanted to take one of the roses to his daughter.
What you did will not go unpunished.
Please forgive me.
I will forgive you with only one condition. Talk to your daughters. If one of them agrees to live here with me, I will grant your life.
The man jumped on his horse and sadly headed home. When at home, the two greedy sisters listened to the horrific story their dad went through, but did not even hear the beast's proposal. But Beauty did not behave like her sisters. Daddy, if you allow me, I accept to go next to the beast. The two sisters immediately accepted her proposal because they thought that everything that happened was her fault. Sad and hopeless, her father took Beauty and headed to the castle. When they arrived, everything was like before. The food was on the table and there was no one around. Just as they sat down and started to eat, the beast came out. Beauty started to shake out of fear. Because the beast was as scary as her father had told her, Beast asked with a soft voice,
Did you come here with your own will?
Yes.
Then in the morning, your father will go away and never come back.
When she woke up in the morning, Beauty knew that her father was gone, and she found a nice breakfast waiting for her on the table. She wandered around in the garden for a while. She felt sad when she looked at the roses. Then she went around in the castle. One of the doors was full of roses. She wondered. She opened the door and peeked inside. The room was decorated just like she would have liked, and it was full of books, flowers, and musical instruments. She thought that someone who can arrange a room like this would not hurt anybody. Then she took a book. On the book was written in gold letters, "My dear Queen, your wish is my command." I wish I could see my father now. As soon as Beauty said it, her father appeared in the mirror across the room. Beauty was so surprised. Seeing her father made her happy again. That night at dinner, Beast appeared again.
Would you let me watch you, Beauty?
You own the place. Why would you ask me?
No, you own this castle now. If you want, I can leave immediately.
Beauty was very surprised with his answer.
I want to ask you something. Do you think I'm really ugly?
At first she did not know what to say. Then she lifted her head to look at Beast and nodded as to say yes.
Well, would you marry me then?
This time Beauty answered harshly, "No." Beast turned around sad and left Beauty alone. Beast was visiting Beauty every night at dinner, and he treated her very kind. As the days passed, Beauty felt like she was getting used to Beast.
I wish he wasn't that ugly.
Couple months passed. Beauty was no longer scared of Beast. She even started to like him. But one day, she saw in the mirror that her father was ill. She raced next to Beast and asked him to let her go home, because she wanted to take care of her sick father.
Of course, you can go. But if you don't come back, I might die from sadness.
I will come back after a week, I promise.
Beast gave Beauty a ring. When she would put this ring on her nightstand and fall asleep, she would wake up back in the castle. The next morning, she woke up in her own bed in her father's house. She ran to her father at once. When her father saw her, he was so happy that he felt better. In the afternoon, Beauty's sisters, who recently had gotten married, came to visit their father. When they found Beauty at home, they were furious with envy and anger. And they decided to play a little trick on her.
Let's make her stay here one more week. Then the Beast will come and kill her.
The two sisters came next to Beauty, crying, and told her that they didn't want to be apart. Beauty promised to stay one more week. Not long after, Beauty realized that she missed Beast. One day she saw a dream where Beast was lifeless on the ground in the castle's garden. She woke up in a sweat.
What I'm doing is cruel and selfish.
So she immediately took the ring off her finger, put it on the nightstand beside her, and she woke up in the Beast's castle in the morning. She waited for the Beast all day long, but he was nowhere to be seen. She waited for hours and hours, but Beast did not come. Suddenly, she went running into the garden. Beast was lying down lifeless on the ground, just like she saw in her dream. Beauty ran next to him and hugged him. Beast's heart was still beating. He rarely opened his eyes and spoke with difficulty.
I thought you weren't coming back. I stopped eating and prepared to die.
But I love you, and I want to marry you.
At that instant, something magical happened. Suddenly, the castle became brighter and more beautiful. Beauty looked around stunned, and then she turned her head back to the Beast. But where the ugly Beast was lying, now there was a young and handsome prince. When she saw him, Beauty started to cry.
Who are you? And where did the Beast go?
Prince stood up and started to tell.
I am the beast. An evil witch put a spell on me. She turned me into an ugly beast. If you hadn't said that you wanted to marry me, I would have had to live my life as a beast forever.
When she heard this, Beauty was much happier. With her good heart, she found true love. Beauty and the prince got married and lived happily ever after. In the ocean, there was a big world in the far depth that nobody knew about. giant whales, happiest dolphins, animals of all colours of the rainbow. Further deep, where not even the slightest light could reach, in the deep-sea kingdom, the sea people lived in peace with all the other deep-sea creatures. The king of the seas lived in the deep-sea castle with his mother and 6 daughters and ruled the seas. The king of the seas loved his daughters very much. His biggest fear was that one day they would be harmed by the humans living above the sea. That's why it was forbidden for the daughters to swim above the sea before they were allowed.
The humans living above the sea on the land are evil.
Why are the humans evil, Daddy? Asked the little mermaid.
Because humans pollute the seas and kill all the life that's in it.
The little mermaid was very curious about the life on land, especially the humans. The stories told about them by her sisters were not enough. Her grandmother warned her about the humans all the time. But she could only go out of the sea gate when she earned her crown and grew as old as her sisters. The little mermaid gazed after her sisters. As they swam away, she made a plan to go out of the deep-sea gate. She took her friend the dolphin with her and went to see Himram the whale, because Himram could go out of the deep-sea gate whenever he pleased. She told about her plan to Himram. Himram did not agree with her at first because he too was very afraid of the king. But then he really felt sorry for her and decided to help. The big blue whale and the dolphin made it to the gate of the kingdom. Seeing Himram, the guards immediately opened the gates. The giant whale and his friends, dolphin, went through the gates easily. After they were out of sight, Himram the whale opened his giant mouth and released the little mermaid. The little mermaid swam above the sea with the help of Himram. She felt the breeze and saw the blue skies for the first time in her life. Marvelous! Right at that moment, she heard some music. When trying to find out where it was coming from, she noticed a ship a little further out from her. It was her first time seeing a ship. This is a ship, right? Let's go! Her friend the dolphin warned her not to go, but she was already out of sight. She moved as fast as she could towards the ship. The ship belonged to the king. The king was having a birthday party for his son. He wanted his son to get married as soon as possible. That's why all the candidate princesses were invited to the party. He's a prince,
But he's a human.
warned the dolphin. The little mermaid with her beautiful voice accompanied the melody Prince was playing with his flute. The prince heard her lovely voice and started to look around,
Be careful, little mermaid. They will see you.
warned the dolphin. The little mermaid jumped back into the water and disappeared. At that moment, back in the deep-sea kingdom, the Witch of the Seas was watching all that was happening from her crystal ball. That day has finally come! The daughter of the King of the Seas and a human! Let the storms roar, the wind blow, and the thunder strike all over! With the witch's curse, giant waves appeared from nowhere, and not able to fight them back, the prince's ship started to drift towards the rocks. The little mermaid was very worried when she saw the drifting ship in the storm. The ship is going to fall apart and sink! We have to help them! mermaid dove in the water right after the ship. Swimming through the shipwreck, she first found the flute the prince was playing. She then spotted the prince, unconsciously going slowly into the deep waters. She immediately pulled him out of the water and carried him to shore. "Wake up! Please wake up!" The prince slowly regained his consciousness and opened his eyes. "You're alive!" said the little mermaid with joy. Hearing dogs barking from a distance, she suddenly realized where she was and jumped back into the water, leaving the prince behind. One of the prince's men and the prince's candidates came next to him.
A girl saved me from drowning. Her voice feels familiar. I heard it before. It was the most beautiful voice.
The little mermaid swam back to the deep-sea kingdom. The prince's flute was still in her hand. She could not stop thinking about him. Right at that moment, the king of the seas came in and saw the flute in the little mermaid's hand. He immediately realized that it was human-made.
We have rules, and I expect everyone to obey them, especially my children. Is it true that you have saved a human from drowning?
"I had to. If I didn't, he was going to die," answered back the little mermaid.
Enough. Humans bring evil. The relations between the sea world and the human world is strictly forbidden.
With a big rage of anger, the king of the seas stormed out the door. But the little mermaid still had no intentions to give up. She went next to Naga, the witch of the seas, and asked for help. Naga agreed to help, but in return she wanted something back. Something very valuable. "I will prepare a mixture that will turn you into a human. You'll be able to walk and dance on your 2 feet. And in return, I will have your beautiful voice." "My voice? But without my voice?" Having no other choice, the little mermaid agreed to the witch's terms, because she really was ready to do anything to see the prince again. "Do not forget, at the end of the 3rd day with the 4th sunrise, the prince must fall in love with you. Otherwise, you will return to being a mermaid and forget the prince forever." With that last warning, the little mermaid drank the potion. She started to swim to the surface, but as she swam, her tail started to fade and was replaced with 2 legs. With the help of the dolphin, the little mermaid made it to shore. Looking from his castle to the shipwreck, the prince noticed the red-headed beauty and ran right next to her.
You, have we met before? Yes, we have.
The little mermaid could not talk, but she handed the flute to the prince. The prince played the tune again he had played on the ship once again. She nodded her head to tell him that she recognizes the tune from before.
I saw you when I was playing this tune on the deck. I heard your voice, and then you saved me from drowning. I've been looking for you.
The prince was sure that it was the little mermaid who saved him, but the girl he remembered was a mermaid and had a beautiful voice. She tried to talk, but she did not have a voice.
I thought you were a mermaid.
Suddenly, the prince started to think that this girl is actually not the one who had saved him, but he still felt sorry for her and decided to help. The prince took the little mermaid to his castle. The king ordered for the wedding preparations to start. He was going to wed the prince to one of the candidates on the ship. While the preparations were on the go, the little mermaid could only watch, but not do anything. There was no way she could convince the prince without her voice. She remembered the witch's words. "Do not forget, At the end of the third day with the fourth sunrise, the prince must fall in love with you. Otherwise, you will return to be a mermaid and forget the prince forever. The first 2 days went by fast, and finally it was the third day. On this last day, the king and the queen were going to wed their son, the prince with the princess of the neighboring kingdom. Poor little mermaid. She could not explain to the prince that indeed she was the mermaid he was looking for, and the prince started to believe that all he saw was nothing but a dream. Her only hope was her great love for him. On the fourth day, the sun was about to rise. The little mermaid was crying with sad tears, but suddenly something unexpected happened. First, her sisters came ashore, and then her grandma followed.
They were there to help her.
My dear grandchild, we are here to undo the witch Naga's curse. The little mermaid was very happy, but she did not understand how they could help her. And lastly, her father, the king of the seas, came out of the water. His heart could not bear the sadness of his daughter. He also realized that nothing could stand before true love.
Oh, my dear daughter, all I want in this world is your happiness. Go to him.
The king of the seas directed his wand to the seashell in grandmother's hands.
In which the little mermaid's voice was kept hidden, and her voice came out of the shell. And the little mermaid's
Voice came out of the shell.
My voice! Thank you, grandmother. Thank you, daddy. I love you all so very much.
With Himram the whale's help, they swam to the prince's ship as fast as they could. As the prince and the princess were approaching the altar to say their vows, the prince suddenly stopped. He could hear the little mermaid's beautiful voice. When he saw the little mermaid coming towards him on a whale, without any hesitation, he jumped in the sea.
I knew it was you.
With her family and friends' help, the little mermaid finally was reunited with her voice and the prince. But she was no longer a mermaid. She was going to continue her life as a human. The little mermaid and the prince lived happily ever after, spreading love, peace, friendship on both land and at sea. Once upon a time, there was a kingdom full of happiness. And in that kingdom lived a king and queen that had only one wish, and that one wish was to have a child. The king and the queen were very kind people, so they knew in their hearts that one day their wish would come true. And one day, soon enough, their wish came true. Were blessed with a baby girl.
Because she was as bright as the sun that light up the day, they named the little princess Sunshine. The king and the queen decided to have a big ball to celebrate their joy and birth of Sunshine.
Everyone was invited, even the fairies living in the mystery forest. But the king and the queen made a big mistake. They forgot to invite one fairy in particular.
Everyone from all around the kingdom and the kings and queens from the neighboring kingdoms presented their gifts and best wishes to Sunshine. And last but not least, it was time for the 12 fairies. The fairies gave incredibly unique presents to Sunshine. With their magic wands, they gifted Sunshine with anything she could want in the world. In the end, only 3 fairies remained to give their presents. And they also gave wonderful presents to Sunshine.
May the beauty of the world be with you at all times. Little princess, my gift is eternal happiness. May you never be sad and always be happy. Just as the last fairy was going to present her gift, something very unexpected happened. The whole ballroom was suddenly covered in green smoke. disappeared. The king asked who this fairy was, crashing this beautiful ceremony. The other fairies immediately recognized her. It was the evil-hearted Black Fairy. So, I see that everyone is invited. All the people in the kingdom. Your friends, kings, queens, and the fairies. But unfortunately, I was not invited. The king apologized for their unpolite behavior. Well, I will not leave this beautiful little princess without a truly unique gift of mine. The most beautiful princess will grow surrounded with happiness, love and admiration, but on her 16th birthday, just before sunset, she will poke herself with a needle and she will be gone forever. Seize that monster, yelled out the king. But the Black Fairy disappeared with her evil laughter. It was the last fairy's turn to give her gift. She was not as powerful as the Black Fairy, but she wished for something which could at least lighten up the bad curse.
I cannot prevent the curse, but I can affect the outcome. May you not die when the curse unfolds, but go in a deep sleep and wake up with a kiss of true love. My gift to you.
The king, with the attempt to prevent this bad curse from happening, ordered every needle, sewing machine, or anything that even resembled a needle to be collected and burned in the courtyard of the castle. With the gifts of the fairies, Princess Sunshine grew as a beautiful and kind child that everybody loved. One day, her dad the king ordered 3 fairies to take care and guard Sunshine, which has proven to be a rather difficult task for them, because Sunshine was not going to be in touch with anyone but the 3 fairies. Sunshine grew up to be a very beautiful young girl with her guardian fairies. Finally, the day arrived. It was the 16th birthday of Princess Sunshine. It was only until the sunset before Black Fairy's curse was going to unfold. The king and the queen did everything they could to prevent the curse from happening, but they were still worried that it would happen anyway. They locked up the beautiful princess in a room in order to protect her. But having no idea what was going on, Sunshine was not pleased with being locked up. Suddenly, a door appeared in the wall. Sunshine was mesmerized by this door she had never seen before, and she heard weird noises coming behind the door. Curious and unaware of what was going to happen, she entered the door. In the room she entered, there was a woman sewing with her back turned to the door. And Sunshine walked spellbound towards the sewing machine. Just as the sun was setting, the Black Fairy's curse unfolded and Sunshine reached out to the needle. And at that moment, it happened. With only a touch of the needle, she fell down and dozed into her eternal sleep. And there it was. At sunset, Black Fairy's spell was cast on Sunshine's 16th birthday. They dressed her up with her most beautiful outfit and put her on a bed of flowers. So started the days where Sunshine would be known as the Sleeping Beauty. The king and the queen wanted to stop the pain, so they decided to put everyone in the castle to sleep until the time the princess wakes up. 100 years passed, One day, a handsome prince was passing nearby, and he saw the castle covered with thorned bushes and ivy. His men told the stories about the castle and the Sleeping Beauty. It really excited the prince, so he decided to go in the castle. The bushes were too thick and the thorns made it almost impossible to go over. So he threw his sword and started opening his way by cutting up the bushes. Cutting his way through, he finally came to the door and he saw 2 guards at the door sleeping. He opened the door and was stunned by the view. There were people on the floor everywhere he could see. He started to walk around the castle and he came to the king's room. The king and the queen also were sleeping on their sofa. Then he saw a room with a half-open door. He entered. This was the room where the Sleeping Beauty was sleeping on a beautiful bed of flowers. The prince came next to the bed, looked at the beautiful princess and leaned over to her ear.
You're the famous Sleeping Beauty. You're so beautiful,
Whispered the prince, feeling overwhelmed with love. He kissed her on her forehead. At that moment, she opened her eyes and saw the handsome prince looking at her. With her awakening, everyone in the castle woke up from their 100 years of sleep.
The king and the queen were in a great shock. They woke up and ran to Sunshine's room to see what was going on. And when they saw their beautiful daughter awake, they were full of joy and happiness.
The prince asked the Sleeping Beauty to marry him. The princess smiled at him and accepted his proposal. And the king, of course, gave his blessing to the prince who saved his daughter and his kingdom. They had the most beautiful ceremony anyone had ever seen, and they all lived happily ever after. There was a beautiful castle in a land far, far away. In this magnificent castle, there lived the most beautiful queen. The queen only had one wish to be happy, and that was to have a beautiful baby girl. A cold winter day, when the queen was sewing next to the window, she suddenly poked herself with a needle. She immediately wiped the blood off with a piece of cotton, and right at that moment, she made a wish. I wish to have a baby girl whose skin is as white as snow, whose eyes are brighter than the shiniest jewel, and has cherry red lips, and a heart full of joy and happiness. And one day, the wish of the good-hearted queen came true. She had a beautiful baby girl. They named this beautiful girl Snow White. The years went by quickly, but their happiness did not last long. The good-hearted queen had become ill and soon after passed away. After a while, the king aged and had become extremely weak, so he remarried another woman. The new queen was beautiful, all right, but she had an evil heart. She was an arrogant and jealous woman. Every day, the queen would look into her magic mirror and ask this question. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And the magic mirror would answer back.
No one, Your Highness. You are the most beautiful one.
And the queen would be very happy with the answer. With the arrival of the evil queen, everything in the castle started to change. Because of her evil doings, the kingdom faced many, many troubles. So to fix the troubles, the king had to go away from the castle. The evil queen was very happy because now that the queen had gone away, she could do as she pleased. The years went by fast, and Snow White grew up to be a beautiful young girl. In a place not too far away, a prince suddenly saw the reflection of Snow White on the river from which he was drinking some water. He immediately looked around but could not see anyone else other than the birds upon his head. One day, the queen was in front of her magic mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The mirror answered.
Well, sorry, but not you, my dear queen. Snow White is the most beautiful one.
The queen was furious when she heard the magic mirror's answer. She immediately called in her favorite hunter and gave a horrible order. You will take Snow White into the woods and bring me her heart. The soldiers took Snow White next to the queen. Welcome, Snow White. Thought that you might have been bored in the castle. Go get some fresh air in the woods. Don't worry, my most trusted hunter will keep you safe. The hunter took Snow White deep into the woods. He had to do what he was told by the queen. But seeing Snow White's pure heart, full of goodness, the hunter could not do her any harm. He warned her not to go back to the castle ever again. And at sunset, he left her in the woods and head back to the castle. Snow White was very afraid in the dark woods all alone. She sat under a tree and started crying. Until, at last, she fell asleep. In the morning, Snow White woke up with birds chirping, and many tiny animal friends surrounded her. Because these animals knew who she was and loved their princess, they showed the way to Snow White. They brought her to their home, which was cute and as tiny as them. A little hesitant, Snow White opened the door. Everything inside the house was very small and extremely messy. Snow White could not figure out whom this house belonged to, but she did not have anywhere else to go, so she decided to tidy up. After she cleaned up the house and made it nice and spotless, Snow White cooked with the small kitchen utensils and had something to eat. In this small house, just like everything else, the beds were also tiny. But Snow White was so tired, she almost fell asleep right where she was. She thought that no harm would come to her in this place and fell asleep on a couple of beds she put together. In the evening, the 7 dwarfs, who were the lovely owners of this beautiful home, had arrived from working in the mine. And as they entered, they were really surprised.
The house was clean, plus it smelled of delicious food. Clumsy wanted some soup, but because of his clumsiness, he spilled it on the floor. Ace was trying to figure out what was going on.
There's something fishy about all this. Who did all this work?
If I can get sleep, I'm sure I can find all the answers,
said Lazy, yawning. The 7 dwarfs quietly all went upstairs. When they entered the bedroom, they couldn't believe their eyes. There was the most beautiful girl they had ever seen lying on their tiny beds. Hearing the sounds, Snow White jumped up frightened from her sleep as she saw the 14 eyes of the 7 dwarfs staring at her. Finally, with some hesitation, she said, "My name is Snow White. I'm really sorry if I have offended you. I meant no harm."
Well, we are sure of that. Otherwise, why would you clean up and cook for us?
Answered Ace, and introduced them.
We are the 7 dwarfs. This is Jolly,
Angry.
Clumsy, Slumpy, Red, and me, Ace, and there he is, Lazy.
Shh!
Snow White was so happy that now she had 7 more fun friends. Snow White told them all about what had happened. The 7 dwarfs were really sad to hear what had happened. They asked her to stay with them. Agreeing to stay with them, Snow White always helped them out. They all started to have happy and peaceful times together, but their happiness wasn't going to last long. One day, the Queen asked the same question to her magic mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The mirror's answer was the same.
Well, I'm sorry, but not you, my dear Queen. Snow White is the fairest of them all.
But the Queen thought that she was already dead. She did not know that the heart the hunter had brought her actually belonged to a deer, and decided to finish the job herself, and for good this time. It was another joyous morning in the 7 dwarfs' house. Snow White was sending the dwarfs to work with a kiss on their cheek. Ace repeated his warnings as always.
Do not forget our rule. If any stranger comes knocking on the door when we are not home, do not answer it.
Okie dokie, Ace.
But you guys, don't be late, okay? While Snow White was preparing dinner, there was a knock on the door. She did not expect the dwarfs to come back home at this hour.
Who is it? Ace? Is it you guys?
From outside, an old woman spoke.
I mean no harm, my little girl. Open up, please.
Looking through the peephole, Snow White saw the poor old woman outside and thought she could mean no harm to her, so she opened the door.
Oh, my dear beautiful girl. I am a poor old woman passing by. If you could give me a bowl of soup, I will be forever grateful.
Snow White took the old lady in and offered her a bowl of hot soup.
Thank you, my dear. I have no money, but I have the most delicious and brightest red apple for you. Even one bite will taste like heaven.
Snow White curiously took a bite from the apple. And as soon as she did, she fainted and fell down on the floor. The old lady was no other than the disguised evil queen. And the apple was far from heaven, but full of poison. Even one bite was enough to put Snow White to a sleep, from which she could never be able to wake up. When the 7 dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White lying on the floor. Ace found the apple with the bite mark.
The apple she ate must be poisonous. This must be the Queen's doing.
Snow White was so beautiful even asleep. The dwarfs put her in a glass box made of the most precious gems, and they put her on a hilltop where all her friends in the woods could see. One day, the prince came to the woods where Snow White was sleeping. Snow White's friends showed him the way and brought him next to the glass box where she was sleeping. The prince could not believe his eyes. The beautiful princess he once saw as a reflection on the river and kept seeing in his dreams was lying right in front of him. He lifted up the cover of the box and kissed Snow White. Right at that moment, Snow White's and the prince's dreams came true. Their love overcame the curse, and Snow White opened her eyes. At that same time, finding out about all that had happened to his daughter, the king broke the magic mirror and sent the queen as far away from the castle as possible. Snow White finally returned to her castle and reunited with her father. Snow White and the prince had a magical wedding. The king, Snow White, the prince, and the 7 dwarfs, they all lived happily ever after.
Once upon a time, there lived a young couple in a land far, far away. They did not have any children, but they really wanted to have a baby girl. After a short period of time, the young lady was expecting a baby. One day, when she was looking out of the window, she saw a beautiful lettuce garden next door. From that moment on, she could not think of anything else but to eat that lettuce. I'll die if I cannot eat that lettuce. The lady lost her appetite and lost an enormous amount of weight. Until one day, finally her husband got so worried for her, he promised his wife that he'd bring her a bunch of lettuce.
Don't worry, my darling. I will go and get you some lettuce.
But you know, it's very dangerous. The house next door belonged to a mighty witch, and the garden was surrounded by big walls, which no one dared to enter. The husband gathered all his strength and climbed the wall, entered the garden, and picked a handful of lettuce. His wife ate the lettuce with great pleasure and felt a little bit better. But unfortunately, a handful wasn't enough for her. The day after, her husband went into the garden again. But this time, the witch was waiting for him.
How dare you come into my garden and steal my lettuce?
My wife is pregnant and she craves for your lettuce.
You could have asked for my permission, you know.
We are all very afraid of you. I didn't think you would allow me. Forgive me.
Forgive you? You will be punished for this.
If my wife can't eat the lettuce, she will get sick and won't be able to give birth. Please.
Then how about a deal? You take as many lettuces as you want, but only in one condition. As soon as your baby is born, you will give it to me.
Out of fear, her husband immediately accepted the deal. After a few months, the baby was born. Soon after, the witch came and took the baby away. She named the baby Rapunzel, because the type of lettuce the baby's mother had craved for was named Rapunzel. The witch took great care of the girl. When Rapunzel turned 16, she became a very beautiful young girl. The witch put her in a tall tower in the middle of the woods, but this tower did not have a staircase. There was only one small window at the very top. The witch had never cut the beautiful girl's blonde hair. When she came to visit her, she yelled to call her from below.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let your golden hair down. It's your mother, dear.
Rapunzel led her long braided golden hair down through the small window, and with the help of Rapunzel's hair, the witch made it to the top of the tower. This went on for many years. One day, a prince came into the forest to hunt and heard a beautiful voice singing far away from the woods.
What a wonderful voice.
He thought, and rode his horse towards the beautiful sound. As he arrived to the tower where Rapunzel lives, he looked left and then right, but saw no stairs or anything else to climb up the tower. Mesmerized by the beauty of the voice, the prince came to the tower every day but couldn't figure out how he could climb up. One night, once again as he was approaching the tower, he noticed the witch was waiting below.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let your golden hair down, it's your mother, dear.
Rapunzel let her long braided golden hair down through the small window, and with the help of Rapunzel's hair, the witch made it to the top of the tower. The next day, just after sunset, the prince went to the tower, changing his voice.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let your golden hair down. It's your mother, dear.
At first, seeing somebody else other than her mother for the first time in her life, Rapunzel got a little scared. You're not my mother. Why did you come here?
There is no reason for you to be scared. I heard you sing and fell in love with your voice. I just wanted to see whom this voice belonged to.
Rapunzel really liked what the prince said and was not scared anymore. For a while, everything went smoothly and the witch did not recognize anything. Finally, one day, the prince asked Rapunzel to marry him.
Will you marry me?
Rapunzel happily accepted this handsome prince's proposal. But Rapunzel did not have any way to climb down this tower. Suddenly, she had a bright idea. Prince started to bring a piece of fabric every time he visited the tower. Rapunzel was tying these pieces together to make a rope. But one day, Rapunzel made a big mistake and accidentally slipped something out of her mouth. Mother, Prince climbs my hair faster than you do.
Which prince? Which prince?
At that moment, the witch realized that there was something fishy and started yelling at her.
How could you betray me? I was just trying to protect you from the evil of the world.
Not being able to handle her rage, the witch suddenly cut Rapunzel's beautiful golden hair. And then sent her to a desert far, far away. That night, the witch stayed in the tower and waited for the prince to arrive. A little while later, she heard the prince from down below.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let your golden hair down. It's me, the prince.
The witch let the hair down she cut from Rapunzel. Unaware of what was waiting for him, the prince started to climb. When he came up, seeing the witch instead of Rapunzel, he figured that something very bad had happened. When the witch started to charge at him, the prince stumbled back and fell down from the tower. Thanks to the bushes below, he managed to stay alive. But because of the thorns poking his eyes, he could not see anymore. Blinded Prince kept walking around the forest, looking for Rapunzel with tears in his eyes. He fed himself plants and wild fruits he found in the forest. He walked so far that he finally arrived to the desert where Rapunzel lived. And suddenly something unexpected happened. He heard a sweet voice singing. He recognized the owner of the voice straight away.
This is the voice of Rapunzel.
He started walking towards the beautiful voice. At the same time, he was yelling.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Rapunzel!
Rapunzel also recognized the prince's voice. My prince! She started running towards him. My prince! Finally, they had found each other. Upon seeing him, Rapunzel hugged her prince and shed tears of joy. Rapunzel's tears wet the prince's eyes. And all of a sudden, a miracle happened. And the prince's eyes opened up. He started to see again. Seeing this, Rapunzel was so happy. Together, they went to the prince's kingdom where people greeted them with joy. And they lived happily ever after.